Hey, hi, hello, welcome back. Alex, may I ask what the actual fuck that yellow stripe is in Algeria? Oh, yeah, the closer you look at the borders, the more angry you're gonna get. This is the Comando Militar Algerino, because there's the Italians and the Spanish, the Iberians, can't decide on who should have Algeria, so they created a DMZ in the middle of the fucking desert. Sure. It's dumb. It's very dumb. It's not as if there are natural landmarks in this area or geography that we could use to demarcate borders. Not like there's some incredible mountain ranges in here which you can't honestly see. No, it's just arbitrary. One cool thing, if you look at this Mediterranean, if you look at, this, you'll notice some of these islands are a little chunky, or exist where they otherwise shouldn't, right? Well, that's because the Germans are damming the Mediterranean and draining it, which is a real project that they had planned. It probably wouldn't have worked, and probably would have caused incredible ecological collapse, but, it's a nice attention to detail type thing. We'll just take a quick look at the world. There is not one, but 3 Reichskommissariats, 4 Reichskommissariats in Africa. The Union of South Africa is the only free democracy left. It's all Italian states. And then, here's a weird one. State owner? No faction. Anarchy. So, every few weeks, dozens of Luftwaffe bombers take off from airfields in German Southwest Africa, with their final destination being the skies above Western Africa, hundreds of miles to the north. Their goal, to transform Sahel into the surface of the moon. Much like the situation in Western Russia, the Luftwaffe's strategic bombing is as much about terrorizing locals as it is about training new pilots and justifying ordnance budgets. Any man-made structure visible from the air, even for a few ramshackle huts, quickly become designated as training target and pounded into dust by thousands of pounds of high-density explosives. A single nomad walking over a rocky plateau finds himself attracting machine gun rounds like dung attracts flies. The result is it's impossible for any country to lay claim to the territory. Not that they'd find much worth claiming. Anyway, it's a lawless, uncivilized land where the fiery hand of God constantly wipes the slate clean. Weird that you are referring to Nazis as the fiery hand of God, perhaps conveying some of your political leaning here, and only those smart enough to escape or conceal themselves are able to survive. Perhaps civilization may once again flourish if the bombing cease, but few living in the wasteland bother speculating on such matters. Those with their head in the clouds are bound to lose it. Yeah. Algerino isn't a fucking word. Yeah, that does not surprise me. It seems like, well, it might not be in Spanish. Is it in Italian, maybe? But no, this is Militar. So they are using Spanish and Italian separately here. I think it's just a bunch of fucking Yankees. A bunch of fucking Americans who don't know what they're talking about. The list of people who contributed to this mod is massive. And it's some wearaboo trash when we start talking about some shit in Germany. I don't know. I haven't played around with Germany. Then you have the Himmlerites. I don't even want to dig into it. Honestly, like, I haven't read any of the shit for Germany, and I don't really care. Like, this shit does not move me at all. Fascist Europe, I don't want to read about your weird fantasy alternate history where fascists rule the world. I'm mostly interested in the United States in that setting. Like, I can be like, yo, okay, that exists, sure, but I'm not digging into it. How hard is it to find one singular Mexican American to spell check your bullshit? In the Paradox community, apparently pretty hard. Apparently. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I can't comment on the grammar of other languages, but I know English. as I was showing over and over and over and over and over and over, the writing is demonstrative of somebody with like a, I don't know, fifth grade reading level. I'm not saying that to be spiteful. I really think it's like a 5th or 6th grade reading level, like middle school, late middle school reading level. I'm not saying they're illiterate, I'm just, their vocabulary isn't very inspiring. Their reliance on curse words, and we'll see that as we start playing, is just ridiculous. Those in glass houses, etc., right? But it's a thing, all right. Occasionally, you'll just get free technology, which is kind of cool. At least they don't use automatopoeias. For the past several weeks, the United States has been embroiled in a crisis with Japan. Our former jewel in the Pacific, Hawaii, has been turned into a staging point for Japanese medium-range ballistic missiles, which were discovered by CIA U-2C plane not too long ago. After a tense standoff between the U.S. Navy First Fleet and the IJN... just the IJN? The IJN doesn't have a fleet? Why not just say the United States, the American and Japanese navies, or the USN First Fleet and the IJN, I don't know, number fleet? Weird inconsistency. Vice President Kennedy approached the empire with an offer. The United States would remove its own medium-range ballistic missiles from Australia in return for the Japanese doing the same in Hawaii. After several rounds of tense negotiations, the offer was accepted, despite the urging of the Joint Chiefs, who argued it was a perfect time to reclaim America's lost territory. Doves prevailed, and today both sides are removing our missiles. This has been a major diplomatic coup for Kennedy, who's being hailed across the nation as a hero for his actions in the crisis. President Nixon, on the other hand, mostly stayed out of the negotiations and has been widely criticized for such. We've staved off midnight for now. Germans on the moon. Germany today proudly announced to the world that a German was the first to ever step on the moon. Eberhard Kollner, using a rocket based on the A9-A10 design from the Second World War, and as a member of a team... Why'd you put WW2 here? You probably put WW2 here because you hit your character limit for what this could fit, but it really detracts from it when you use needless abbreviations like WW2 or USN or JSN to convey something. Just write it out in full. Grammatically, the first time you use something in context that you will later abbreviate, you say World War II, WW2 in parentheses, or at least use the full form of the word first. Or words first. That's just good writing. As a member of a team led by acclaimed scientist Werner von Braun, successfully landed along with a team predominantly made of former Luftwaffe pilots, Kollner, on live television broadcast globally, snapped a smart salute to the flag of the Reich with an Earth visible in the background, photo which is spread across the globe thanks in no small part to the German propaganda. Jubilant celebrations began almost immediately across Germany. Already, President Nixon has publicly vowed the race shall continue, and NASA is already making preparations for permanent human presence upon the moon in the form of a lunar colony. The President's announcement was quickly followed by one from Japan, who stated that they will land on Mars. Despite the President's insistence that the race is not over, the American public has taken the news poorly. Though America managed to get the first astronaut into space, public confidence in the space program is at an all-time low, as fewer Americans than ever look to the night sky with a sense of explorative awe. And here we go. News from Germany today, sporadic at best. CIA assets in Germania, which, Of course, we can't call Berlin Berlin. No, 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 no. Berlin is now Germania. Why? Couldn't tell you, dude. Couldn't fucking tell you. Does it make any sense to have Germania be the capital of, No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But, whatever. Now reported shortly after celebrations of the moon landing began to settle, German military units and several platoons worth of the German dictator's various bodyguard units filled the streets and immediately put the city under martial law. From what we're hearing, an assassin, which the Germans claim had belonged to the Japanese Kenpatai, attempted to kill the Führer, but was stopped in his attempt by one of Hitler's personal bodyguards and killed on the spot. Already, reports of several assassinations have surfaced. Various politicians in the Reichstag initially believed Hitler to have been killed and began long-planned plots to eliminate their rivals in the chaos. In the streets, various military units nearly came to blows as various units ordered one another to stand down and the chain of command broke down. You use units a few too many times here. But I can understand why. The fact that Czechia isn't annexed in like a 40-year-old Reich is, yeah. No, it's a protectorate. Germany never wanted to take over Bohemia. They just wanted the Sudetenland, and they only took Czechoslovakia because they had to. Weird, then, that Slovakia was handed away, but Czechia stayed as part of Germany. But sure, no, in the long run, they would have given it up. I find this idea of all these Reichskommissariats just, like, insulting. Like, oh yeah, they would have created local governments. Would they have? Would they have really? Sure. Even Marx was like, yeah, so what if there's a couple million Bohemians in Germany for the pretty borders? Yeah. Bohemia's got a rich history of Germany knocking at the door. The situation has begun to recover. Martial law is still in effect. Germania, well, suddenly the Reich seems much weaker. In Washington, this raises the question: how can Germans maintain their new world order when they can hardly handle themselves? He soared in his rocket ship above the Earth. We're calling it a rocket ship because I'm a mod author, and I didn't do my due diligence in researching what kind of spacecraft were used in the early 1960s. So I'm just gonna call it a rocket ship, even though rocket ship is what an 8-year-old calls it. As he gazed through the capsule window at the continent stretched out beneath him, continent probably, at any given point you can only see so much, but he realized just how small mankind truly was. It occurred to him that if every human being had the opportunity to see what he could see, how insignificant all the struggles and wars and vendettas were, the world might finally know peace. A peace where everyone could work towards the advancement of science, prosperity, and... A sudden ringing cut across his psyche. He was jolted from dreams of days past. Psyche. God. You're trying too hard. Sitting sluggishly awake from his sadly earthbound bed, he fumbled for the telephone. There's a lot of alliteration going on there. Bedside cabinet, pulled the receiver up to his ear. John Glenn speaking. Way too early in the morning, I might add. That's not how John talked, but okay. A panicked voice came across the line. John, it's James. Have you heard the news? You know what? This reads a lot like an SCP. Like one of the early SCPs before they really got their footing for like the narrative tone that they wanted to follow. This really reads like SCPs of like self-insert characters. Yeah, that's the kind of vibe that this has. John, it's James. Have you heard the news? Glenn rubbed the sleep out of his eyes and replied, James Edwin Webb, I'm not even out of bed yet. Be more specific. They're defunding NASA. A hastily made coffee and frantic flips through the morning paper later. John Glenn felt a rent. They would have found out before the news found out. Just to be clear, budgets don't just arbitrarily get defunded. They're made on an annual basis. They consist of like an exhaustive decision-making process. it wouldn't just happen mysteriously in the middle of the night. They would have known it was coming, and they would have been pissed and worried about it for a long time. Hastily made coffee and frantic flip through the morning paper. Later, and John Glenn felt a wrench in his gut as he faced the prospect of his life's work all being for naught. So what, the Germans got to the moon first and just means space is over? What can we do? They can't just give up on the future. Nixon's already made his mind up. He wants to move the money over to the military and other practical projects. Webb paused as Glenn made an outraged intake of breath. I really don't think there's anything that can stop him at this point. I'm sorry, John. Glenn felt himself back on the reverie of space travel. The government cannot let the dream of space be but a dream. America had to see the stars. Nothing we can do. We'll see about that. And then we're gonna have President Glenn later on. Some men still dream. Yeah, warning. There's gonna be a lot of reading, unfortunately. When I played through this, I honestly skimmed and skipped through it. The United States is once again gearing up for the election season. As per the Constitution, all the seats in the House of Representatives and a third of the Senate seats will be up for grabs in November, along with innumerable state and local races across the nation. They're not innumerable, they're numerated. Many state and local races, but it's not like, I don't know, grains of sand on the ocean floor, right? We can number them, and we do number them, and we do keep track of them. It's not innumerable. That's hyperbole. And the course of American politics will change with it. Status quo or radical upheaval. It's time for the people to decide. The Republican Democrats and the National Progressive Party, along with numerous third parties, are gearing up for political machines across 50 states, with special focus going to Senate seats up for grabs. Tens of thousands of volunteers, campaign staff, and candidates are gearing up to begin primaries, rallies, whistle-stop tours, public speeches, glad-handing, and debates that will dominate the nation's attention for the next few months. Issues of great importance will be debated, candidates will be scrutinized, and eventually millions of voters across the nation will get a chance to make their voices heard, and the greatest democracy in the world will once again prove itself. Oh fuck, what number comes after 12? Fighting for you and me, help elect the NPP. Okay. So, right now, the National Progressive Party is working together, but the Republican Democrat Party is holding together much better. American society is somewhat unified. The Republicans and Democrats are working together. Yankees and far right are voting together. The NPP left and center are voting together. Currently 85 Republican Democrats and only 13 National Progressive, of which 5 are center and 8 are far right. We gotta fix these numbers. Increase party unity? Nope. Just never tell me about that one. So this is actually a really interesting system. If we click on here, like the game has been wanting me to, you can see for every single state, they have their representatives. They also have the number of electoral votes. And this is really good. This is really, really good. Just like, I want to impress how amazed I am by this system and how fun this system is. You did a great job with this. I have a lot of critiques about the narrative choices you've made, but this is excellently done. So yeah, we need to pick out where we're campaigning. The campaigning system is very illustrative, something special about this mod that is frustrating and fascinating at the same time. Normally, you would assume choosing, oh, I'm going to campaign in New England, would just give you a plus whatever in New England. It doesn't. All events in this game are percentile based. All events in this mod are based on percentiles. Even if it's a 50-50, you almost never have a 100% chance of just doing what you want. There's always a chance of miraculous success or horrific tragedy. Always. Which is interesting. It varies things up. It adds diversity of gameplay, you know, that certain random element. It's also quite frustrating because as a player, I have no agency no control over modifying those values or impacting those values. They're just static. Nothing I can do will make voters more likely to listen to the Progressive Party or whoever. It doesn't matter if I've killed hundreds of thousands of people. It's a good system, but it's lacking a little nuance. So right now, do we want to protect our seats or do we want to go after other ones? Obviously, I want to go after other seats. There's currently a toss-up in Georgia, and we could hound that, but honestly, in the South, I'm pretty sure it'll be far-right incumbents, or far-right challengers. What I want to go after is... I mean, this is a Senate election more than anything else, so we're trying to win senators. Great Lakes has 4 senators. Who has the most seats? The checks notes. The Plains. Great Plains have 7 seats sometimes? No, they only have 5 right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 in the West Coast, 5 in the Rockies, 5 in the Great Plains, 4 in the Great Lakes, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the Deep South. But again, these are not the people I want to be courting. So either the Great Plains, which are kind of hard to turn, honestly. You know what? Let's go for the Great Lakes. Indiana, Ohio, Wisconsin. No. Sorry. East Coast. East Coast only has Maryland, New York, and Pennsylvania up, but this Republican incumbent only has a small lead. I want to believe that you permanently impact the voters, but I don't know this for a fact. I'm not clear how this works. If I go to here, support seems to last regardless of what the election is. And if that's true, then regardless of how many Senate votes are up, if you care about the president, what you should be focusing on is New England and the Great Lakes region, because between the two, that's something like 210 votes in the Electoral College by itself. So we're going to focus on the Great Lakes. Now the AI, I say the AI, a second event will happen with the opposition campaigning. So there will be an event that will have the second effect, targeting the Great Lakes, that will basically do the same thing we do, but there. So if you roll badly and the other events roll great, you can just lose elections despite doing things correctly. From the sun-drenched hills, revanche-laden neighborhoods, and wild underground economies of the Bay Area comes the debut of one Ken Kesey. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's bizarre, profane, provocative, and a gauntlet thrown onto the table of American literature. Inspired by Kesey's work as a psychiatric orderly in Menlo Park. You didn't need the California there. Sure. The novel follows one Randall McMurphy. McMurphy, a veteran of Scotland and proud street brawler, is sentenced to time in a psychiatric hospital for battery and illicit gambling. There he meets a number of characters, including the novel's narrator, Chief Bromden, and tyrannical head nurse, Nurse Ratched. Ratched? Probably Ratched. Over the course of the novel, McMurphy challenges her rule, standing up for himself and the other patients in the ward. He's rewarded for this with a lobotomy, courtesy of Ratched. The novel ends with Bromden smothering McMurphy in an act of mercy before escaping to freedom. Cuckoo's Nest has already garnered its fair share of accolades and controversy alike. Many are calling it a portrayal of America's own authoritarian systems in an age when the nation is supposedly a bastion of liberty in the world. Hollywood star Kirk Douglas is rumored to be seeking adoption rights, while schools across America are rumored to be banning it. I'm so crazy I plan to vote for Eisenhower again this November. Protests in Birmingham. The civil rights movement is reaching its crescendo. All across the... Man, you wish. Wait until 2020, baby. This'll put the civil rights movement in the 60s to shame. All across America, there are protests, rallies, and riots hosted by civil rights activists. And they get worse by the month. Big mood! Just this week, a massive march was held in Birmingham, Alabama, the heart of the segregationist South. tens of thousands of activists, white and black alike, calling for equal rights. Although it started civil, local police chief Eugene Bull Connor quickly deployed riot police and set dogs loose on protesters. Man, imagine that. Police attacking peaceful protesters? Police starting a riot? Whoa, crazy! I'm sure that's just a one-time kind of fluke. What's the party in Sweet Home Alabama? Well, their culture is African American. Majority culture. Let's check out Sweet Home Alabama. Oh, you know, they're just far-rightists. As you would imagine. I believe the far-right party is called... Oh god, I forget what they're called. Something silly. The event has been widely televised across the nation, with average Americans shocked by police brutality on display in Birmingham. Actually, Birmingham was mostly photographed. It wasn't really televised. Many of the more liberal news sources across the country have likened the events in Alabama to those in Germany decades ago, citing police brutality and suppression of activists to draw parallels with the Nazi regime. Yeah, they weren't the first to do this. The NAACP and a bunch of other anti-segregation, pro-black organizations in the 1950s wrote a letter to the United Nations called We Charge Genocide the Crime of the Government Against the Negro People, edited by William Patterson with a preface by Ossie Davis. Is very, very good. Yeah, since 1951 in OTL, our timeline, those same comparisons were being made. And, man, when you know it, Hitler made those comparisons. And, oh my god, put the book away. There we go. And, as I mentioned before, got inspired for a lot of his policies by the history of the United States. Yeah. But, you know, over a decade ago, this was already happened. Hitler names Bormann his successor. Following the recent attempts on German Führer's life by a suspected Kenpartei agent, the pressure upon the Führer to name an official successor for the Reichstag to formally recognize the choice has been steadily building. After almost a week of debate and speculation, Hitler today appeared on live television from the Reichstag and announced to the Reich that his successor would be Martin Bormann. Considered the most likely choice, the decision has been welcomed by the moderate and conservative elements of Germany, although the liberals and some elements of the military have expressed concern. With Bormann's commitment to stay the course of Nazism with only minor reform, Albert Speer, Hermann Göring, and Reinhard Heydrich have criticized the choice as being certain to drive the Reich into an early grave. 1 week ago, civil rights activists held a protest in Birmingham, Alabama. That quickly devolved into a riot. Now, tens of thousands of people oppose the civil rights movement and staged a counter-march, waving the flags of the Confederacy, their home state, and even a few swastikas. In comparison to the previous week, police chief didn't even bother deploying more than a few lightly equipped beat cops, several of which joined in the protest. Furthermore, there are reports of pro-civil rights activists attempting to flock to Birmingham to continue the movement have been driven out of the city by police and locals alike, with several would-be protesters returning home bruised and battered. With rising violence in Birmingham and elsewhere, Vice President Kennedy has reportedly convinced President Nixon to consider federalizing Alabama National Guard and deploying it to restore order. More things change, huh? Washington. AP President Richard Nixon met with Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal. Oh, God. Jawaharlal? Minister Nehru. Me no pronounce word good. Me word bad. At the White House today, the meeting, first between Nixon and Nehru, was the first stop on the Prime Minister's visit to the United States, soon to be followed by multiple stops in Washington, Virginia, and New York. At the Oval Office, President Nixon reaffirmed America's commitment to deepening political and economic ties to India. It is a vast nation blessed with multitude of resources and a rising population. To believe that this administration of the United States of America will be foolish if we did not embrace a republic and all the opportunities that it offers the world. Following the president's remarks, Prime Minister Nehru returned with cordiality of his own. The people of India are on the verge of great success in the fields of economics, societal progress, and national development. We should use this success to join hands with the free world, and I'd like to thank the president for his efforts to bring our nations closer together. I actually wanted to go for South Africa plan first. Whoops. I did not think. In the war's aftermath, Germania drew a line hugging the fjord, the stretch of Europe's coast between Norway's fjords and the Strait of Gibraltar. Along its length rose a string of watchtowers, seawalls, and concertina wire. Their seams held together by trillions of Reichsmarks and Führer's Aryan will. This stranglehold over the old world goes by deceptive names like Einheitspact and Fortress Europa. Free world calls it what it is, a steel curtain. Volksschau would have one believe that the steel curtain is as the Gibraltar Dam, impregnable, insurmountable, everlasting. In truth, the curtain is pregnant with rot, surmounted with power struggles, frail on its deathbed, much like its architect, Hitler. Subtle blows can make out gaps of its rustiest sections. There, Liberty's torchlight can filter back into the continent afresh. Isn't the South Africa and Middle Africa war bugged to shit? It's not as bad as it used to be. I win it easily and consistently. Reconstructing Africa after the war, bugged as fuck. Does not work. And we'll get to that. But basically, after you win here, assuming you do win, you can decide on a one-state solution or basically another three-state solution. It sucks that there's nothing more nuanced in that. And then you invest in the states to try to stabilize them. But the more you invest in them, the more it destabilizes you. And it's just never worth it to invest anything in them because there's no actual consequences for not investing in them. So it's better to just let the AI sit here and not do anything and just ignore it. Like I said, the mods, it needs some work done. It's a WAP. It's a work in progress. It's a whip. It be whippin'. It do be whippin' though. This war is okay. The Indonesia war, not that bugged. And those are really the only two I played around. Now, the Guyana war, also very easy. And that's it. Those are the 3 wars I've run into. I've seen potential for other wars, but haven't done it. Jane, what are you? Jane Franklin. Yeah, why is Lake Chad so big? That's a fucking question I don't have an answer to. I don't know, but it's been... I assume it... Victoria. I don't... That's not where that is. Also, it's Victory Lake now, I guess. I guess Lake Chad got expanded, maybe through dams or something. There might be some plan I'm unaware of that somebody came up with to enlarge in Lake Chad, but yeah, it's just a blight to look at, isn't it? In defense of the stars, John Glenn stood before an assembled mass of scientists, engineers, and science enthusiasts, and journalists. He'd already spoken with a few people and shared in their frustration at NASA's situation, talked about his experience as an astronaut, and even signed a couple of autographs. Now he needed to make a big splash. Just been having a pleasant dream about my last mission. When my good friend James Webb woke me about the news, I was distraught, to say the least, to know that the government was giving up on the future of space travel, partly because the thought of never going up there myself again is saddening to consider, but that's not the only reason. By ending our involvement in space, President Nixon has given up. He's accepted stagnation and decline, abandoning the stars to fascist powers. He says we lost the space race. But as long as the stars still shine, space will never be lost. I implore that the president reconsider his options. The future of America, and the human species as a whole, lies above us. About 20 minutes later, Glenn made his closing remarks and was greeted with raucous applause. He felt satisfied that his words had hit their mark. With so many journalists in attendance, tomorrow's papers would carry them further still, yet he still felt defeated. His words alone would not be enough to save NASA. If American space travel was to have a future, it would need a voice to represent it in the halls of power. John Glenn had never been one for politics, but as he thought on it, he realized the political office may be his best course for seeing his dreams fulfilled. As he drove home, he recalled Ohio's governorship was up for election in a few months. It was almost a crazy thought, and yet, an astronaut in office? Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, it didn't pause. Say to you today, my friends, that in spite of the difficulties and frustrations of the moment, I still have a dream. It's a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit together at a table of brotherhood. I have a dream that even one day the state of Mississippi, a desert state sweltering with the heat of injustice and oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 children will live one day in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. On the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, prominent civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech to a grand crowd of over 250,000 people. His words have already spread across the country like wildfire as men and women, black and white alike, spread a new slogan: I have a dream. This is an entire readme.txt of a game I just downloaded. Things can get hard sometimes in this map. Stuff won't make sense, or will be frustrating, but everything is possible and the map is completable. Can I get a doubt on that? It may be hard, but it's totally possible. Okay. How we do in New England? A calamitous campaign. Well, we're off to a great start. The results of our most recent regional campaign have been terrible. There's really no other way to describe it. Our candidates have made numerous gaffes and aren't attracting positive attention. Meanwhile, we're getting outspent on TV and radio ads, and to top it all off, many precincts don't have any volunteers or organizers attached to them. What is this, the Biden campaign? Maybe we can turn this around, but it's a horrendous image for this party. Wah, wah, wah. And watch them get a miraculous campaign. They did a middling campaign. I'm not going to read the text for this every single time because we're going to get it spammed over and over and over and over and over. Let me campaign again. German spy arrested. According to his landlord, Joseph Greenberg was a rather unassuming fellow. Paid his rent on time, never had any noise complaints, and always helped old Mrs. Connors carry her groceries up the stairs. In reality, this was all a cover. Something the landlord learned when she opened Greenberg's empty apartment to the sight of piles of surveillance equipment and folders with swastika stamped upon them. Not very subtle. Thinking quickly, she called the police, who in turn informed the FBI and arrested Greenberg this morning as he left for work. Joseph Greenberg was revealed to actually be Josef Hansen, an agent of the German Abwehr. Ironically disguised as a Jewish American, his missions were to secure a job at Bell Telephone, study their communications infrastructure, identify flaws for the installation of wiretaps, and other espionage methods. Even more concerning was that his phone book had the telephone number of several local NPP politicians inside, and it seemed he was trying to contact the party's fringe elements, including fascist agitator Francis Parker Yockey. Charges for violation of the Espionage Act are already being brought against him, though he will likely end up simply being deported back to Germany rather than facing a long prison term in the United States. Oh, that's one less Nazi to worry about. Oh no. Oh no. Internet. Bad. Mine was being horrible yesterday. We don't have a nationwide oligopoly. We just, well, I mean we do, but our IP providers here are abhorrent for the level of tech that we have in the city. A house divided. A house divided itself cannot stand. Divided against itself cannot stand. I believe this government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. I do not expect the Union to be dissolved. I do not expect the house to fall, but I do expect it will cease to be divided. It will either become one all thing, or all the other. Abraham Lincoln. Though the institution of slavery was torn down at the end of the Civil War by the 13th Amendment, well, actually, Modmaker, it wasn't. It was torn down at the end of the Civil War by the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery except in circumstances of imprisonment or as punishment for a crime. So, 13th Amendment, kind of weak. Failed Reconstruction and decades of Jim Crow ensured the issue of a race would not be, or could not, be solved. As the divides between Republican-Democrat Party grow, debates turning to fights and friends turning to enemies, the truth can only become clearer and clearer. The party as it stands cannot be saved. Yet, there is still time to act. America once again reckons with its issues of race, be it through words or war. We can only pray for less blood to be shed this time around, for the fate of the world rests upon this near divided house. We got the party splits. What does the party splits do? It'd be great if it actually split the party, but it does very little. It's just a prereq to some ideas. Oh god, this is a fucking thing. I'm gonna cheat here, and before I do, I want to make it clear why. We were almost done with the South Africa plan, but then this focus finished automatically, which cut all the progress I had made in the South Africa plan. It's not just this mod that has this bug, but holy shit, it is frustrating. Wait a minute. We had cracking the steel curtain. I didn't do South Africa plan, right? Yeah, never mind. But this is a bug that happens later on, especially when playing as Robert Kennedy. Oh my god, the amount of pop-ups that stop you from finishing focuses is just very frustrating. So we're playing all Slippery Richard, right? Kennedy is a rare breed, one of the last progressive Democrats and a rising star in a Republican-Democrat party. Seen as a great uniter, many see him as the only chance to keep two sides of the party together, despite great distaste for him held by the American people. He's a proposed plan, despite President Nixon's sentiment, to finally end the crisis with the Civil Rights Act, to immediately equalize all citizens of the country. Segregationists in the party may react poorly to our plan, or civil rights movement is proving to be a bigger threat to our stability than we could ever imagine. Maybe America needs change, but only when we deem it necessary, not at the whims of a mob. Get Nixon's plot. Obviously, you go with the Nixonian option if you're playing Nixon, because you're playing Nixon. We're gonna focus on the Great Lakes. The Great Lakes region and the Central New England region are really the main two we gotta lock down, politically. They're so fucking powerful. Not in this election necessarily, but in later ones. Cracking Fortress Europe. President Nixon stared at a world map projected onto a screen at the White House briefing room. At the center is America, encircled with Japan, facing Japanese and their colonial minions to the west, and the Germans and their slave empire to the east. Where the Japanese and Americans have only recently escaped Armageddon's embrace in Hawaii, the Nazi Empire was fraying at its seams. Hitler grew older and more infirm by the day. No amount of clever camera work and pre-recorded speeches could hide his creaking gait. His once mesmerizing oratory shrunk into senile rambling. Germany's moon landing was not a triumph. It was an epitaph. Secretary of Defense Melvin Laird looks up from the latest CIA intelligence brief on the German Reich. It's a house of cards, Mr. President. Britain chafes under a foreign occupier. Brittany already deals with us in secret. Norwegians continue to resist decades of occupation. The African colonies wither on the vine without support. All held together by a man who can't finish a sentence with forgetting how it started, Nixon noted. When Hitler goes, his successors will fall over themselves and split the spoils, like Alexander's generals did in antiquity. Laird handed a sheaf of documents from a CIA folder. It's an opportunity of a lifetime. Never get another shot at crippling the Nazis like this. It's time to go back to the old world. Civil burps app. Yup. Family dinner. The Dirksen buildings, there we go. Cafeteria was a common haunt for senators on a lunch break. Today, they would play host to a most prestigious pair. Vice President John Fitzgerald Kennedy sat thoughtfully chewing on a turkey sandwich. Opposite him sat a smiling man, the party registry knew as his chief of staff, but who John had always known as his brother. It's been too long since we've taken some time to ourselves, said John with a smile. How are you, Bobby? Ethel still taking good care of you, I hope? Robert. How you doing, Robert? My Bostonian accent is not to par anymore. Robert Francis Kennedy laughed at a playful wink his brother gave him. Can hardly complain of the home life, Jack. His grin faded. Still, current events haven't exactly been going great for my sleep. The older Kennedy nodded sympathetically. Violence is getting worse for sure. He frowned. Nixon's being a sticking about not helping things either. Won't endorse any legislation on the matter. Can't you do something about it? As long as the president sits on the fence, things will only get worse. I'd love to, but you know how Nixon is, muttered John, idly stirring his coffee. Knowing him, he'd probably just veto whatever's put in front of him, and yell at us for fracturing party unity. This is far more important than party unity, Jack. There are millions of Americans, millions of good, honest people being cast aside for things that are far outside of their control. The longer we wait, the greater their suffering will be. Fixing his brother with an intense but encouraging look, he continued, You're the vice president. At the very least, you can use your voice in the name of those who have no voice. John was silent for a moment. He smiled. I've always been a good man, Bobby. You're right, of course. I must act. Fanfic, God, me want pizza. Me have pizza? Me maybe order pizza tonight. Many residents of post-war Europe often heard stories about life in the promising United States. Children listened intently as their grandparents spoke of immigrants going from rags to riches within a few years of their arrival. Seeing how the fatherland rejected to print stories about life in the United States, citizens under the jackboot could only rely on relatives for an accurate portrayal. It was uncommon for foreigners to contemplate whether there truly was poverty in the promised land of America. Michael Harrington's novel, The Other America, debuted in bookstores across the country today. Novel discusses issues of poverty in the United States and exposes readers to a significant number of Americans living below the poverty line. Harrington claims that many poor residents live in social isolation, and are not commonly seen by middle and upper classes. He calls for politicians to take immediate and remedial action to rid the country of every aspect of poverty. Critics of the novel disagree with Harrington's socialist tendencies, but most readers agree with the call to action. The book has already gained influence in the number of politicians in the capital who want to create a better country for every citizen, rich or poor. Economists are already devising ways to make education and healthcare more accessible in the country. America's biggest misconception. Debunked! We did finish a infantry weapons 6. Let's get anti-tank. Infantry anti-tank 2. We've spent all this time training and I have 0.83 experience. It's gonna take a long minute. Polls are updated. Yeah, the polls get updated so you can make educated decisions about how things are going. It's helpful, but getting notified that it's been updated is annoying. It's spammy enough. Ah, goddammit. Somebody declared war on somebody. I don't care. You're gonna see me click through a ton of those because all of these Siberian states are constantly attacking each other. And once Germany kicks off, there's just constant war, and it's noise. It's just noise. Assassination attempt on Edward VIII. In a stunning news today, the King of England, Edward VIII, has had a narrow escape from assassination during a speech he was performing outside of Buckingham Palace. The assassin, believed to be a radical member of the organization HMMLR, attempted to throw a grenade at the monarch in the middle of his speech, was stopped only by the fact that the device landed amidst members of the government standing beside him, shielding him from its wrath. This is a public representation of the instability many have long believed hides behind the facade of civility in modern England. Apparently God was with the king on this day. Hey, we've had a stellar campaign. Good for us. Republican Democrats had a respectable one. The cult. The Oval Office, in a rare moment of peace, lies silent. It lies silent more often than not, my dude. It's an office. It's not like the president lives in there. Okay, whatever. No aides stand by, no cameras are present, no interruptions are tolerated. Not on the cusp of such crucial news. President Richard Nixon sits at his desk, anxiously signing inconsequential documents. If they're inconsequential, the president wouldn't be signing them. You just like the image of Nixon signing documents, and you wanted to convey that to the reader, which I appreciate. It's a good dramatic, cinematic effect. But come on, inconsequential. Shooting a few expectant glances at the telephone to his right, he realizes a pile of unsigned papers has been exhausted. Just as he kicks back in his chair to relax after a long day, the phone rings. Yeah, that's what the president does. He sits at his desk, signs things, and then once he's done signing things, he's just like, all right, done for the day. Yeah, yep, totally. You got it, Jimmy. He already knows the color, and for what reason he calls. National Assembly of Guyana would soon finish voting on the National Security Act, and William Rogers would be the first to know the result. Give it to me straight, Rogers. It was a landslide, Dick. Barely more than a quarter voted down. They're afraid of Burnham, Nixon muses. It should be. Now more than ever, he'll crack down on anyone who threatens the peace, political rivals, anti-segregationists, anybody and everybody, Roger declares. Why'd we put that bastard in power anyway? The president's just gonna have a field day. Nixon slams the phone back into its cradle, laying back in his seat and rubbing the bridge of his nose. He knows that disaster looms. The Guyana conflict is easy and also inconsequential. The civil rights issue seems to have no end in sight. Families, friends, and even Congress. Again, this should be a semicolon or a colon. Families, friends, and even Congress divided on the best solution. Our great President Nixon, however, has all but come up with a plan to put down dissent once and for all. Those goddamn liberals will learn to fall in line this time. No, will learn to fall in line. Again, this is weird. And once they will, after Nixon crushes whatever crazy un-American legislation they've come up with by his own hand, estimates show by turning his silence into lukewarm, verbal-only support, there'll be just enough support to clear a supportive bill in the Senate. And Vice President Kennedy has just the bill. They're walking right into it, the suckers. And now we veto the Civil Rights Act. Allowing the Civil Rights Act to go to the Senate will be the perfect move to stop it once and for all. Defeating the law will humiliate Kennedy, the Democrats, and the progressives, and a strong veto will show the nation our stance on this issue. If the people want change, maybe they should be less damn militant. Did Nixon and Kennedy hold hands? No. This is not waifu Nixon mod. Unfortunately. Conversations from the street. Two young men walk down the streets of LA, basking in the midday sun. But the topic of their conversation was distinctly gloomier. So you hear about the Nazi spy they caught out in New York? Saying he was trying to get in touch with Yaki of all people. It's crazy, isn't it? You know how much they hate the Japs. Hell, who doesn't around here? But I never thought they'd get in bed with the Krauts. Spy was just reaching out to them. Didn't say nothing about agreeing to anything, First Man continued. Two men, like plenty others out in California, have had their own sympathies towards the MPP. After all, everyone in LA or the Bay Area has had to live only a few miles away from a humiliating reminder in 1945. The MPP were the only ones seemed to have any interest in getting the treaty ports back. Turned to his friend and asked, so, what do you think? Yaki in on it or nah? He's definitely wearing lederhosen underneath. don't know. Yaki is the, far right, dude here. How's this doing? Oregon and Washington will keep our incumbents. We have a toss-up in Florida and Georgia. But those are all rightists on their East Coast, and we haven't made any luck yet. If anything, we've lost progress. And the Great Lakes, no progress. They don't expect to be able to just win the first time around. Hey! Oh, fuck. Now I have to go look at infrastructure again. Alright, who's got 7s? You get a 7. You have 2 civilian factories. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, you don't. Do I? No, I don't want naval factories. I don't right now. I really don't. Find me more 7s. More 7s. More 7s. More 7. Alright, Wisconsin. Wisconsin. How many civilian factories you got? 3, 4, 5. And the rest will be military factories. Indiana. Indiana had 7? It is the crossroads of America, after all. You got 5. Perfect. Just plop some of those bad boys in there. 6, 6, 7. Pennsylvania. You have 9 civilian dockyard. Okay, yep, that's plenty. 666. Massachusetts. What do we got here? You got 4, 5, 6. More of these. Okay. How many you got? 1, 2, 3. Then military factories. What do you got? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the rest military factories. New Jersey, Delaware are up next. Jersey. Jersey's got 4, 5. The ratio is completely made up. I just like having 50% civilian factories. There's probably some math out there what the optimal build is, but this is... I've been doing this for so long that I'm just sticking with it at this point. Is it wrong? Probably. Is it suboptimal? Probably. I did not hear about that. That's a way more fun political scandal than any of the shit we have going on. It's wildly inappropriate, but better than saying, maybe I just won't leave office if I lose the election. William Rogers sits quietly on a large, ugly couch, intently listening to the daily news. Morning. The recent passing of the National Security Act has allowed the Guineas government to seize hundreds of critics and political agitators, as well as executing dozens more. Guinea's president, Forbes Burnham, has stated that the raids strengthened the Ghanaian Republic and its democratic system. Exiled former President Chidi Jagan issued a statement. A couple dozen people crowd the room, aides, secretaries, even a few senators, all sitting in pure silence as a low hum of the television and its tinny speakers recite the unfortunate news. Rogers sighs, deciding he's heard enough. Standing up, he shuffles over to the TV and shuts it off. Turns around and looks at the 2 or dozen so people crowded into the sitting room, their expectant eyes locked on him, their ears awaiting his word. He pauses for a moment. No one speaks to the press. Not yet. Not the press secretary, not me, not any of you. Not a word until we figure out our next step. Understand? Series of nods acknowledge his message. Now somebody get me a phone line to the president. We need to arrange a cabinet meeting. Quickly. Yes, Mr. President, we need to do this now. NPP gains popularity. Social democracy gains popularity. Because apparently intervening in another country's internal affairs is a social-dem thing to do. News to me. News to me. I mean, yeah, he's a monster. But, like, so are we, dog. We are not world police, and really don't have any, any justification in acting like we have any right to be. So, we can research anti-air equipment, but for the time being, I'm going to refrain. Why? Because I'm already not producing the amount of infantry equipment that we need, and it would just give all of our divisions would then need it. So I'll come back, I'll circle back for this later, but not right now. How we doing on industry? That's... Yep, checks out. Engineering, meh. Artillery, we can fuck with that later. This would give... Oh, garbage. Yeah. Air Assault 3, better air assault organization. Surely in America, murdering foreign officials is an all-party policy. Yep. So, surprising no one, we're going to Guyana. Not, right now, because if I put my troops in Guyana, they will be removed. Right click, cannot relocate from a non-naval base. Okay, you know what? Such a dumb fucking thing that the AI just doesn't relocate to the closest naval base. But okay, whatever. Still a couple weeks until those results are up. Oh my god! Would you like to read more text, Alex? I would. President Nixon sits at the head of the table, bolt upright, a contemplative look upon his face. All along the magnificent mahogany table, the presidential cabinet is seated. From the Secretary of Veteran Affairs, far at the end, Jack Kennedy, H.R. Heidelman, right next to the president. So far, no one has said a word, aside from a few curt greetings. H.R. Heidelman breaks the palpable silence. I think we all know why we're here. Our friend in Guyana has gone too far. We need to do something about it. Secretary of Treasury, Robert McNamara, follows Heideman's lead and speaks next. Nixon, still bearing an angry yet contemplative look. Press doesn't know her involvement in his election. Need to threaten constricting economic ties, sanctions, condemnations, diplomatic isolate. Frankly, Bob, he'll get trade from somewhere else. Hell, when Germany gets back on its feet, we'll all be in trouble because that's where we'll get it from. Crowds will jump at the chance for an ally right on our doorstep. Kennedy cuts in, his sharp Massachusetts accent grabbing the attention of the room. What do you suggest? McNamara asks. There's a clout in the country. Threats, bribes, blackmail. McNamara shakes his head. No, just apply pressure for him to repeal the act. If we threaten him, he'll double down on his opposition. Any MP of theirs he suspects might turn against him will face retribution. Can't top that, if only for moral reasons. Slowly, the room evolves into conflicting arguments. Various cabinet members arguing for an exile army, others for isolation. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the clamor. That's enough! The head of the table has spoken. Richard Nixon stands and then speaks. I don't care about it either way. Just want the press and burn them both to calm the hell down. Force him. Pressure him. Doesn't matter. Get the act repealed. He turns to Haldeman, nodding. We'll do it either way, but I want your word, Haldeman. So I guess I'm Haldeman here, saying sanctions are enough to pacify him, get him to calm down, or tell him to repeal the act, or else. Nixon was a staunch interventionalist. You should just pull the event text from the localization files and shove it at a text-to-speech program. Shit, you're not wrong. You're really not wrong. I'm surprised Mod hasn't done that. Put in audio files that automatically play when events happen to have them narrated. That'd be really nice. Although President Nixon's sweeping electoral victory 2 years ago may prove he once enchanted the American people, seems that the magic that swept them to the polls in 1960 is wearing off for many of them. Many of those people also happen to be journalists at nationally syndicated newspapers. Headlines riddled with pun-laden insults seem to be everywhere. Titles like Nixon Needs Fixin', Tricky Dick in a Pickle, and Lawlessness and Disorder fills the newsstands. The main source of ire is the rising tension of the civil rights movement in the South and, specifically, the president's inability to properly contain it. The man who once staved off nuclear Armageddon, or so he would claim, now seems powerless to stop a bunch of student protesters and racist hoodlums from squaring off, and his image is deteriorating as a result. Nixon, who seems impish, and anemic when compared to Vice President Kennedy's charm and charisma, needs all the positive press that he can get. All he can do for now is hope that eventually they will change their tune, though he cynically insists that the press has a grudge against him that they will simply not let go. You don't want me narrating mods. It's just gonna be me making fun of things and being like, oh hey, this localization file's this pronunciation or this spelling's wrong, or this is grammatically incorrect, and then going on a 20-minute ramble about that. You know I'm right. Nixon vetoes the Civil Rights Act. Shock, horror, delight, and a myriad of other feelings bubbled in the Senate today as news of the surprise veto of Kennedy's Civil Rights Act trickled in. Majority Leader Lyndon Johnson garnering enough support to push the bill through the floor and onto Nixon's desk. Most assumed that it passing was a foregone conclusion. But that was not to be. With the big red veto stamped across the copy submitted to President Nixon, while conservatives and Dixiecrats celebrated defense of American ideals, many progressives, both Democrat and Republican, see this as a betrayal, as a final straw in a long line of inaction and pig-headed appeasement. Senators murmur whispers of defection and revolt in back rooms, while party celebrates its unity. The back of the Republican Democrats is broken, and the wolves among the MPP circle closer than ever. True. That is the brand, is, I've been trying to upload my last Crusader Kings 3 video, but the encoder got fucked up and I don't want to record a recording of a recording, but I guess I'm gonna have to. I go off on like an hour, not an hour, maybe half-hour long tangent of like how the romance mechanics are all rapey and creepy as hell, how all the romance feels like it was written by incels, how just a bunch of things in the game are problematic, and yada yada yada. I'll get it up there eventually. It's just the idea of re-recording it at this point because it for some reason didn't encode right. I'll upload that today or tomorrow. Yeah, I enjoyed it, honestly. I even clipped it and deleted the rest of the video because I'm like, I deleted the rest of the series, in fact, I think. Maybe? Yeah, I did. I had a whole second campaign lined up. Yeah, I had a whole second campaign lined up that I just completely nixed before the first one even got published after going off on this tangent because I'm like, oh, you know, I don't like this game. It's not fun right now. Like, I was having fun despite it, but I'm done with it. Good stuff. Typical Alex stuff. So yeah, I've been meaning to upload that. If I'm being real, I've been playing just an ass ton of modded Skyrim, and it's been just disassociating like crazy. New era for the Republican Democrats dawn. Northern riots begin. Okay, yeah, but let's get back to the South African plan. South Africa is one of the last true democratic strongholds left in Africa who are not fully opposed to working with us. Yet the presence of Nazi scum north of them makes their existence and our chance to make use of such an African foothold possibly very short. To combat this, a plan has been drawn up to slowly draw the US and South Africa together in order to protect their democracy, and weaken the grip of German fascism in Africa as a whole. I've been thinking about streaming or recording Skyrim, but like, you know, there's a lot of content out there already. Maybe though, maybe. We'll see. Well, here we go again. Kennedy sighs, rubbing his temples. Haldeman looks over the time. It's a bad way to start the day. He reviews our offer. Says, pressure didn't work. Burnham's a loose cannon. Nixon is looking thoughtfully at one of the windows of the White House meeting room, ignoring the exchange behind him. Unlike yesterday, presidential cabinet is not assembled in its near entirety. Only McNamara, Haldeman, Nixon, and Kennedy are all in the boardroom. Well, McNamara says, guess we gotta do it the hard way. Ball's in your court, Jack. I'll make the call. Kennedy makes the move to get up, but Nixon raises a hand, turning around. His eyes scan over the room. Oh, That was McNamara. Who says we have to do anything? Haldeman raises an eyebrow. Dick, he's executing people. We can't let this slide. Not with the press on our backs like they are now. Since when are we so high and mighty? We've supported men like Barnum in the past, and even if we ignore this, still have plausible deniability. I don't think it's a good idea, Kennedy says, placing a hand on Nixon's shoulder. I think we owe it to the people of Guyana to help them. Haldeman looks over to McNamara, who shrugs. Gotta tell you, Bob, I agree with Dick on this one. Haldeman looks at Nixon. Oh, Dick, you're the president. McNamara's right. The press will get over this in a few weeks. Not that big of a deal. Oh, Dixon. Yeah, I like Gopher's Skyrim content. And that's about it. As far as Skyrim content goes, man, when I play it, it's just like disassociative fest of like, I just want to be not in my head right now. And it's very good for that. I don't know if I could make it entertaining. There'd be a lot of silences. I'm good at providing constant, ceaseless, unending narrative about nothing and talking about things on tangents for a long time, but a lot of the Skyrim I like is about the silence and the ambiance, and that's hard to capture in the same way unless you're playing. I've thought about this a lot. Mongolian Civil War. In a shocking turn of events, the world watches in awe as the remnants of the Red Army based in Mongolia declared war upon the co-prosperity spheres Mongolia, and won. Peace treaty stipulates the sphere will not interfere in the Red Army's activities in the east, sure sign of the expansionist goals of its leader, General Alexander Vasilyevsky. Vasily's alive? Holy shit, he is. Who's an old Alexander Vasilyevsky? He retreated. Turns his attention to the northern factories of central Siberia. While many once thought this brand of Red Army survivors was little more than a horde of starving Mongolian bandits, it now seemed many warlords vying for supremacy over the shattered Union now have yet another opponent. From the taiga to the British seas, the Red Army stands above all. White Gold Concordat is stupid, but I always play elves, so fuck the Nords. Skyrim belongs to the Snow Elves. Just gotta purge the Nords. Make Skyrim elvish again. The R&Ds run a middling campaign. That's what I like to see. Stellar NPP campaign, yeah. That's what I like. I can't do a Stormcloak playthrough. I've tried a couple of times. It's so bad. Hey, what if we let people play as a race called the Nords and then made the Nordic faction xenophobic racists who want to get rid of everyone else? Yeah? Bethesda, you think like that's a good idea? Yeah, one of the core themes of this game is warfare between nations. They're divided upon racial lines. Okay. Nah. Khajiit does not have many wares. I do not play Khajiit. I like Khajiit. I like punching shit as them, but Argonian, if I'm gonna go with one of the anthropomorphic races, I like me an Argonian playthrough. Oblivion and Morrowind, I loved playing Argonians. Skyrim, I don't know, too fucking cold. It just didn't feel right. Burp, 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 burp. Let's campaign in the Great Lakes. Are we winning either of these now? Let's see. Great Lakes, our Ohio incumbent might stay on, but Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, we haven't broken through. Great Plains, I mean, at least we're not losing Oregon and Washington. I'd really like to lock down California, but yeah, we'll get there. New York, they have a small lead. Pennsylvania looks like we might take over, which is huge. Pennsylvania has Oh god, many electoral college votes? New York and Pennsylvania do? Let's see, what do you got? 43, 29 votes. California has 40, so you would think, oh yeah, West Coast has the most. But 40 plus 6 plus 9 plus 3 does not make for many. 29 plus 43 plus 17 plus etc. etc. Nyok's where it's at. Alex big muscle lizard boyfriend confirmed? Nah. Sneaky like skink kind of wizard is the kind of Argonian I like to play. Like swimming through water and sneaking up on people. That's fun. I want to be an alligator, basically. Situation and prospects in South Africa. Truncated for brevity. Conclusions. South African Federation faces a similar issue of her own civil rights. Despite never having implemented so-called apartheid system proposed by the National Party, the continuing legal, social, and economic inequality between white and black South Africans are prime breeding ground for social unrest, something the already weakened government cannot allow. Boer agitation in the northwest of Africa has grown stronger in the last 2 years, especially as government moves to pass legislation addressing racial inequality. The Boers live relatively isolated from wider South African society, hold proud traditions of political independence and armed defense. Organized uprising is likely in the near future. A direct invasion by South Africa's northern neighbors, the African Reichskommissariats, would be very unlikely in the current situation, as they hold almost entirely rely on their mother nation to provide materiel and political support to prop up their own governments. All military forces tied up in internal peacekeeping operations. However, should this ever be withdrawn, their actions may turn erratic to the point of losing any sense of predictability. The wider American public would not be vehemently opposed to direct intervention in South Africa should the situation change to require it. Alex goes to Florida. Alex becomes Florida. I could never live in Florida. I could never live in a conservative state again. I've thought about going back to Indiana just to help radicalize people and form a local chapter of the DSA, but Indiana sucks, and I have no desire to go back. I'm getting scout helicopters because recon, great. Scout helicopters, better recon. So we just not going to war with Guyana? I guess not, huh? Alright. Brazil wins the final World Cup. World Cup finals. 1962 FIFA World Cup is drawn today with a 3-1 victory, defending champions of Brazil beating Hungary in Santiago. While Chile's ability to host the 1962 World Cup has been questioned following a devastating earthquake in the country 2 years ago, Chile's effort to rebuild and complete preparations earned international admiration. The tournament became marred in controversy, however, with violent clashes erupting between Italian and Chilean teams in what the media has labeled the Battle of Santiago. Local police forces were later required when violence erupted between German and Hungarian fans, following a German semi-final 2-1 defeat against Hungary, Germany finishing in 4th place after going on to lose 3rd place playoff against the host Chile. Americans, unsurprisingly, aren't in the top 3 because we weren't good at soccer until the late 90s. And we're still not really that good at it. The only reason I'm halfway this decent at football is because my Brazilian cultured family taught me how to play. Again, progressives in the Senate will be more likely to support an African intervention or add one off-map civilian factory. Oh, expanded business ties. If we are to truly defend South Africa from fascist encroachment, we need to make it worth defending. God, that's American. We can encourage American businesses to invest in South Africa. Not only can we support and even expect support and financing from them, we can expect no more complaints and need no further justification to defend South Africa. No one will be able to complain. Money is upon the line now, after all. Yeah, Hungary in 2nd place? Yeah. Not, Argentina, Venezuela, or Mexico that tend to have decent teams. Nah. Hungary. The collapse of the triumvirate. In the wake of bombings of the Triumvirate Conference in Malta, it would appear as though whatever chances the fragile alliance had went down in flames. The incident proving to be a final straw for many, both the Kodilos and Turkish president have now declared their respective countries' desire to leave the alliance. With two of the alliance's three major powers leaving it, safe to say that the days of the Triumvirate are over. Already, Turkey has made fresh calls for territorial rights and ambitions in the region to be respected, particularly in respect to Cyprus and the Levant. The Italian military being mobilized in response to Turkish movements in Syria. On their part, the Iberians have expressed little desire to keep significant relations with their former allies, Iberia instead looking in towards its own problems. South African Tango. Secretary of State William Rogers was well familiar with the steps of the South African Tango. South African ambassador would ask vague generalities about admission into the OFN, but without any real plans for common defense or tariff liberalization. The secretary would, in turn, respond with vague updates on South Africa's application, now nearly a decade old, suited both parties. South Africans wanted the threat of an OFN membership to cow the Germans, and the OFN needed to preserve the last democracy in Africa. Neither, however, wanted a German intervention, which OFN membership could provoke. Thus, the South African Tango continued, without end. "How can I help you today, Ambassador?" Rogers struck a neutral tone to hide his boredom. He was near certain the response would be entirely predictable. "We're doing very well. How about that OFN application?" would be the usual response. "Germans are making their move." Ambassador Wilhelm Christian Norde declared, "Herzog's Boer nationalists are talking to the Germans. South Africa's in danger. We need America's help." That got Rogers' attention, as his stomach dropped in the most unexpected turn in the decade-long discourse. "What kind of help are we talking about? Financial? Intelligence? Above all, military," Nelda finally said firmly. "The Boers and the Germans want to fight. We won't make it easy for them. No more dancing. No more games." American football team's best placement was in the first cup in 1930. Third place was behind Uruguay and Argentina. Really? Didn't know that. Didn't know we had a good team in the 30s. That's very surprising. Ah, shit, they ran a masterful campaign and we ran a calamitous one. I'll be lucky if we're able to hold the number of seats we have, let alone expand our holdings. Blackmail in the White House. Rigid Manila envelope on the White House staffer's desk had nothing that struck him as unusual, save the absence of a return address. He tore the end open, peeked inside, finding nothing than a small bundle of papers and photographs. But when he saw what they were, his blood ran cold. Internal memos from the 1960 Progressive National Convention, transcripts of private conversations between MPP senators, schematics on wiretaps, photos taken inside the MPP campaign headquarters, and, most chillingly, a letter from the Chief of Staff H.R. Hardeman authorizing the espionage. At the bottom of the envelope was a note card with a message typed on it. "Unless you want the front page of the Post next week, contact me, and we'll talk," with the address of a P.O. box printed on the other side. Staffer had enough wits about him to immediately reseal the envelope, call the FBI, and pass it on to them. In under an hour, it was on J. Edgar Hoover's desk. A brief call to Nixon informed him that the staffer already agreed to stay quiet. The Bureau's top men were set on tracking the blackmailer down. It would all be over in a couple of days. There were only 13 teams back then. USA, Mexico, Peru, Brazil, Bolivia, Chile, Paraguay, Argentina, Uruguay, France, Belgium, Yugoslavia, and Romania. Really? I guess that shouldn't be that surprising. I'm just surprised that, in the 30s, Spain and Portugal weren't into it. Then again, don't know much about pre-World War II Spain and Portugal in the 20th century. I'm sure Nixon having to worry about blackmail is never gonna be a problem. It's fine. Did Hitler just die? I think Hitler just died. No, hold up, game. Why did you do that? What just happened? Something happened. Siberian Black Army? I don't know. Something just spawned, and you're not telling me. Where are we gonna campaign, Alex? Same place we always campaign, Alex. I'm gonna take over the Rust Belt, so help me God. War in the desert. Ever since the Second World War ended, Turkey has never been pleased with their share of the spoils. Far too many Turks ended up outside their borders. These long, simmering tensions have exploded today. I mean, there's Turks are up here, man. Not down. Okay, whatever. A Turkish president, Alparslan Turks, has announced that a state of war now exists between the Turkish Republic and the Italian Empire. Despite being former allies, war has already proved extremely popular in Turkey. Young nationalists and party members marched through the streets of Ankara, calling on the Turks to lead us to victory. Comparatively, in Italy, the public has shown little to no support for the war, many questioning why Italy is even in Cyprus in the first place. Are they? Because, like, it doesn't seem to me that they are. They're in Rhodes, but this is Cyprus, right? Yeah, this is Crete, this is Cyprus. They're not in Cyprus. The Hellenic state is. Are you a vassal of? Yeah, you're reliant on, I don't know, whatever. What a way to treat a former ally. Something's happening. Not my problem. Okay, I don't need 3 of these. These I might need 3 of. APCs I will need 3 of, but these I'm good on keeping on 1 for the foreseeable future. Why don't you make aircraft, Alex? Don't need them. Planes are for tryhards, alright? Good, honest Hoi 4 players. Just keep boots on the ground. And battleships in the sea. The way God intended. God being, I don't know, some Victorian-era monarch, probably. A crack in the facade. National Security Council has been gathered by the order of the President, by recommendation of Treasury Secretary McNamara. And Bob, if you told me this wasn't about Madagascar blockade, it better not be. You told me to hang up, no hang-ups on that issue. Not at all, Mr. President. Oh, that was Nixon. Should have done a shitty Nixon voice. Not at all, Mr. President. McNamara shifted slightly in his seat. Director of Central Intelligence actually asked me to have you convene the council. He glanced at the director, who had a pipe to his mouth and his mouth curled into a glib smile. Get on with it then, the president urged. With a puff of smoke, he leaned in and began. Mr. President, we have contacts high up in the German colonial administration in Madagascar. We have reason to believe that they've done some misgivings about their loyalties to Berlin. The weakening of the German Empire and Hitler becoming increasingly ill, it's become apparent that a conflict may break out on the island sooner rather than later. We have word that rebels are planning to make their move soon and local government is divided. Nixon shrugged. Who are these contacts? Can we be sure of their sincerity? McNamara pushes on his glasses further up his nose for dramatic effect. The director again puffed from his pipe. Mr. President, our contact is Reichskommissar Emil Maurice. Nixon seemed stunned for a moment, but collected himself quickly. My God, that's great. And he has a direct line to Hitler. The director nodded. Maurice is one of Hitler's oldest confidants. Their relationship has been strained as of late, which is partly why he wants out. And his word, we think, is good. Nixon nodded in silence for several moments before continuing. Well, damn it, you keep me updated on this. Find any way to breach the bastion, you let me know immediately. Again, the damn it, kind of unnecessary, but let's see if we can put a dent in the Unity Pact. Anyway, let's talk about our commitment to African democracy. Africa is a damned continent. Yeah, it's a hell of an opener, man. I gotta say, big yikes. In the era wholly controlled by despots and fascists, what little, air quotes, free lands remain having been returned to the Stone Age. God, there's just so much to unpack in like that one fucking sentence. Even in the darkest of rooms, there's a beacon of light. And just as we're a true light of democracy for the world, we will defend South Africa and make them a beacon of democracy and a light in a dark continent. Again, referring it to Africa as a dark continent it's mired in centuries of racism and imperialism. But, I mean, what's the United States if not racist and imperialist? God, I should probably put in a cut soon. I was thinking like, oh, we can just get through his administration. No, it looks like we're going through months at a time if we're lucky. What do we do? Support for the monarchist cause. In South Africa, shoring up support for the institution in crucial states would mean keeping our Anglo friends in power. I don't think this does anything. But sure, it's thematically fitting. Oh, fuck it. Who cares? Just make this one 3-hour video, who gives a shit? Or just don't upload this to YouTube. Yeah, it's possible. Okay, now Hitler's dead. There's no way that the game is doing this because... What the fuck? Why were you doing that, game? In search of a champion. Henry Jackson, known affectionately to his contemporaries as Scoop, sat at his desk, looking expectantly at two figures sitting on the opposite. Maureen Neuberger, Scoop's deputy and fellow senator in the NPP center wing, quietly thumbed through her notes, waiting for him to speak. Next to her sat nominal head of the center's more radical wing, Michael Harrington, waited with the same expectant look as Scoop himself. The two could not be more different. But as the center's leader, Scoop knew he needed both of the party. He was going to get anywhere. So you know, the election is still looking dire. Again, Scoop. Right still holds plenty of influence over the party. No progressive voters gonna vote for the party whose last candidate was Strom Godman Thurman. Worst of all, you don't even have a candidate. Well, it would help if anyone had bothered to put their name forward, joked Harrington. The bare hint of contempt. Perhaps if we were to do more to support our core working class voters in the Midwest and elsewhere rather than kowtowing to segregationists and filling our ranks with West Coast elitist types. Neuberger, herself, of proud Oregon stock, sat up with an offended look. Everyone here is fighting for the same thing. I've done plenty to speak up for the underprivileged. At least I don't just sit around writing essays about it. Scoop sat still for a moment, smiling bemusedly as his colleagues continued to bicker and snipe at one another. Ah, yes. No one hates a leftist as much as another leftist, except perhaps yet another leftist. Leftist infighting, a story as old as time. Damn tankies, they ruined the leftist movement. No, it was the anarchists. No, it's the Marxists. It's just, you gotta love it. Just big bickering family. I coughed, and the other two immediately ceased their childish exchange and looked to him once more. You're both very different which is exactly why we need somebody who can speak everybody's language. For to have any hopes in this election, we need to move forward with one voice. Harrington and Neuberger looked at each other, unsure what to say. Scoop glanced out the window with an uncertain look. I don't know who the man is to lead us, but he better show up soon, or we're screwed. You could have just said, better show up soon, and ended on that. You don't need to be like, or we're fucked. Like, you don't have to end every event with a curse in the last sentence. Wake me up when the filler arc ends. There is no end to the filler arc. This mod is just filler arc, which is interesting, right? Is it good? Is it bad? I don't fucking know. It's different. The task of apprehending the unknown White House blackmailer was hardly difficult. The P.O. box had been registered under a false name and paid for in cash, so the FBI decided to play along, write a letter agreeing to the blackmailer's demands, and ask to meet in person. Surprisingly, the blackmailer showed up suspecting nothing and was immediately nabbed by federal agents. Blackmailer turned out to be 24-year-old NPP activist, one Charles B. Junto. But they have had little success in getting more than that out of him. He's refused to say anything besides requests for a lawyer. That's right, that's what you say to cops, lawyer. But fingerprint evidence has left no doubt of him being the one who sent the envelope. Bureau's best guess is he's a misguided progressive who wants to force through change with some underhanded methods. But that's all they got to work on. Charges of espionage and mail fraud are already working their way through the pipeline, and hopefully he'll go to trial by November. With any luck and a bit of nudging from the White House, get moved up to October or late September, meaning they'll likely be safely behind bars when the midterm elections roll around. 3 cheers of Hoover and his boys. R&D's run a respectable campaign? Well, fuck them. Uninspired MPP campaign? We're not doing great, okay? Sometimes you get a lot of good rolls, sometimes you don't. It can be genuinely upsetting when you're playing this trying to see one storyline for the NPP, for example. The game is just like, no, you failed. No, you failed. No, can't get elected. But, you know, it's kind of charming in a very pull your hair out kind of way that the game has its own sense of agency. Polls are updated. Richard Nixon stands in the Oval Office, thoughtfully looking out of a window. Dawn broke far on the horizon, a blazing orange-red sun rising in the distance, casting warming light across the White House lawn. He sighs. It's going to be another long, dull day. Meetings and bills and foreign policy. The sharp rap on the door jolts him slightly. Someone wanted a word at 6:15 in the morning. Nixon pauses for a second, then nods. Come in. H.R. Haldeman stepped through the doorway, newspaper rolled up in his fist. What is it? Nixon asks. Bad news, Dick. We're not done with Burnham yet. Without another word, Haldeman flings the paper down on the president's desk, turning it so Nixon could read the headline. Nixon supporting Guinea's segregation. Whistleblower. Nixon mutters to himself, reading the article. Somehow the news found out. Somehow they knew the government got Forbes Burnham elected. Somehow they knew Nixon administration supported him, and his racial segregation policies. Nixon rubs his nose, taking a deep breath. Haldeman, get Kennedy and Laird. Let's call a meeting. I need to phone a phone line to the CIA director. I think you end up going to war with Guyana either way. Protecting our interests. With the newly realized importance of South Africa, it's essential that we gain a foothold there before anything occurs. Not only will this allow us to react quicker to anything that occurs to our lamp of democracy in Africa, but will also help with justifying our intentions to our own population. After all, we ought to protect our troops overseas, and you'd be hard-pressed to find an American who disagrees. Makes it more difficult to pull out. It's getting hot in here? Didn't know we were talking about that. Internal investigation. While jubilation about catching the blackmailer in the mood of the White House, Department of Justice quickly turned sour when an unpleasant piece of information came forward. Charles Juneau wasn't acting alone. There's no way that envelope could have been screened and intercepted with other incoming mail unless a co-conspirator on the inside had helped get it through. Secret Service immediately investigating potential leads into the mailroom, but with little success so far. White House staff are all whispering about something else going on. Most of them suspect it's an information break that involves the NPP in some way. Even worse are the rumors going about that another gray scare is on the horizon, but directed at any and all NPP members. This is currently limited to the White House. There's certainly very few professed NPP members in the Nixon administration. It would lead to widespread panic if news leaked to the rest of the executive branch's bureaucracy, let alone the press. This is getting complicated. A note from Russia. We'll come back to that. Presidential briefing on the Free State of Magadan. Nation of Russia has been a great unknown since the end of the Second World War. Can I put this behind this? Nope. It's... Alright. No, didn't want to grab both. Wanted to grab one, because I don't know where the fuck this is. Following Barbarossa and the Soviet Union's collapse, CIA could scarcely glean any information from the vast country, except for the West Russian War of the 1950s. The Russia of our imagination has become a cesspool of violent infighting. What's changed? With the German bombings preventing any attempts of regional warlords to consolidate power. At least, this seems to be the case in West Russia and Siberia. With land areas stretched from the Baltic to the Pacific, there are some stretches of territory untouched by the banditry and chaos that plagues the areas adjacent to the German Reich. From Central Siberia, the primary participant of the Bukharin-era Siberian Plan, we have heard that a republic has risen and collapsed there between the Second World War and West Russian War. Then there is the Russian Far East, a region the CIA has been observing for quite some time. In the brief, the legitimate government of the Soviet Union, under the provisional leadership of Genkrikh Yogida, retreated there after their defeat. Subsequently, the anti-Bolshevik front sprang out from Manchuria and Harbin, making significant gains before shattering into three parts, based in Chita, Magadan, and Amur. In particular interest in this briefing is the Free State of Magadan, led by Mikhail Matkovsky, a local fascist of some repute. He and his foreign minister, Nikolai Petlin, have proposed reforms and democracy should the U.S. support their bid for the, as Matkovsky insisted, Great Crusade for Russia, as well as intelligence and information. The agency notes that decision is the president's alone to make. However, it cautions the president in supporting any fascist bid for Russia. Moreover, the aforementioned minister, Petlin, seems to be a more malleable candidate for leadership. Whatever the president decides, the agency shall carry out. We'll never see anything else about this ever again. I think this is a placeholder for something that hasn't been introduced or was already removed. Forbes Burnham was no idiot. Clearly knew the key to executing any coup was to limit communication during, only letting people find out about the coup once it was fait accompli. Which is why he made sure to invite American and Canadian ambassadors to a formal dinner. While they ate filet, and sipped champagne, soldiers of Guinea's Defense Force occupied the Parliament building, shutting down the switchboards and broadcasting stations, dragging MPs out of their homes and into police vans, carried out summary court-martials and sentencing for particularly egregious traitors of the Republic. It was not until the ambassador Spencer King returned to the American embassy that he learned what had happened. A jury-rigged chain of communication managed to put him in touch with Washington. Nixon called an emergency meeting with Joint Chiefs of Staff. One conclusion was reached. This shall not stand. Not on our watch. And now we declare war on Guyana. Why? I don't know. We just don't get a choice here. We get a plane that I'm not going to use. I think they want you to use that is like a tool here, but it's completely unnecessary. Maybe it's like thematically fitting for like, oh yeah, we're going down to a, you know, in big air quotes, liberate something. I don't know. I have no idea why it's tied to this, but that's okay. Yep. Here's our Panama fleet. You could use an admiral. An admiral. There you go. Convoys being escorted. Good shit. Alright, we'll be ready to go in 2 weeks. Oh, I'm landing in the wrong part of the country. Oh, whatever. This is a cakewalk. Please. Please. Please, game. Please, don't give me another event. R&D campaign crashes and burns. That's what I like to hear. Let's hear that a lot more. God damn it. calamitous MPP campaign. Good match. Silent Spring. Man is a part of nature, and his war against nature is a war against himself. These were a few of the chilling words marine biologist Rachel Carson used to decry America's ignorant addiction to pesticides in her newly released book, Silent Spring, a product of nearly 4 years of original research into government-funded eradication campaigns. 400-page publication asserts that chemicals used for pest removal, DDT, aminotriazole 2,4-D, harm far more than the pest vermin that they were made to exterminate. Instead, they seep into the soil and render it impotent, she claims, and linger in the fruits and crops that Americans eat. In response to these accusations, DuPont and Velsicol Chemical have filed libel suits against the researcher. Their efforts to preserve their standing have thus far, however, been stymied by both the court of law and court of public opinion. The book has shot up to first place in the New York Times bestseller for nonfiction, a sign of the American people's approval of a whistleblower's increasingly compared to Upton Sinclair. Leading scientists now remark that a nationwide ban of synthetic poisons America's laboratories peddle is now only a matter of time. Oh, fuck yeah, it's democracy time. Oh no, Alex, it looks like these invasions are gonna drag on a while. Yeah, it looks that way, doesn't it? But then you get someone on the ground and you support that invasion. Oh, you take the capital. Oh, well, I'm sure we can't just take the capital and the war is over, right? There has to be more to the war. Well, no. All those fucking paragraphs, all those months of, oh no, war with Guyana, oh no, and it's over. Just all that fucking build up. Man, I like foreplay as much as anyone else, but that, you gotta, it's like 3 hours of foreplay and you'll bust in 30 seconds. Like, this is deeply dissatisfying. And hey, you know, if that happens, then find ways to keep going and make it fun and not just over immediately. What's up, banning pesticides? What kind of shroom trip did this guy go on? We do have some pesticides banned here, but not many. The United States intervenes in Guyana. After several days of sporadic fighting between Guinea's militia forces and the forces of the American Expeditionary Forces, wow, forces between Guinea's militia and the American Expeditionary Forces. You can cut two of these forces out and not lose anything. Unlike real sex, you can't go back to foreplay. Exactly. Well, I guess you can. If Guyana wanted to have another coup, we could just keep going back and forth. But it's not a satisfying payoff. Expeditionary Forces landing on the coast. Pentagon announced Guinea's President Forbes Burnham was taken into custody this evening. American troops now patrol the streets of Paramaribo and Georgetown in the interim capacity until legitimate government of Guinea's people assumes control of the nation. Widespread disorganization reported within Guinea's military. Former President Burnham's coup defense analysts had expected American policing action would face little opposition. State Department issued a press release welcoming intervention success and return of genuine democracy in Guyana, with expressing high hopes for future cooperation with the government and waiting on matters of mutual agreement. Be our friend, or else. But it's funny, Guyana's in the Organization of Free Nations, but no one else is. So this indicates to me, like, surely. Oh, Belize is. I didn't realize. Surely more content must be planned for this because, yeah. Where do we go, we go here, 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 and then here and here. This is the only places we campaign. How we doing, by the way? Great Lakes? Well, we're gonna win Indiana. And we're gonna keep Ohio. Alright. East Coast. We're going to win New York, and we're going to win Pennsylvania. Sweet. Let's just keep hammering down those leads. We're in October, so this is the last chance I'm going to get. That'll do. South Africa secured. Every morning, a gaggle of New York investors conclude a successful tour of De Beers diamond mine throughout the Transvaal. Every other week, a ship carrying crates of newly stamped guns, factory-fresh trucks, and 100 tons of ammunition leaves port of South Louisiana for Cape Town's distant shores. And every fortnight, a flight of C-130 cargo planes depart for the wild blue yonder, to complement a desert warfare and Afrikaans-trained advisors in tow. For all intents and purposes, South Africa is now a member of the world's last concert of democracies. The OFN now shares its watch along the Orange and Zambezi. Sir Graf now trusts that the free world shall prevent war from imperiling his nation's survival. We did it. Yay. I'm up to 10 whole army experience. God damn. That's nothing. We still don't have the new helicopter variant, so I can't pivot to that. I guess we can do... This does improve defense. Yeah, let's get improved anti-air equipment. Then I'm gonna have to build it, but, you know, honestly, that's not a huge issue right now. Polls are updated. Science and art of opinion polling. Hold up, I'm not reading this. This is flavor text. This is flavor text we've seen before. Can't fool me. Has Burgundy finally done it? The Swiss Seismological Service issued a press release with worrying news. Last night, their headquarters in Zurich noted a seismological event somewhere in the Burgundian Jura that lasted 4 seconds and reached 4.6 on the Richter scale. Due to the lack of aftershocks, they concluded it was not natural activity, but likely a man-made incident. Several Swiss radiologists have also reported a spike in airborne radiation equivalent to a mild nuclear meltdown, or an atomic air blast. Governments worldwide have arrived at one conclusion. Burgundians have successfully tested a nuclear device twice as strong as the one dropped on Pearl Harbor in 1945. The shadow state remaining tight-lipped as ever, news will likely never be confirmed. Still, it seems 1962 will be remembered as a dark point in history, the year Burgundy ascended to the rank of nuclear powers. God help us all. Just exercise, yes. 1 and 2 and why I want this XP is I want to turn these into APCs, and it's gonna take hundreds of experience to do, but in the short term, I want our divisions to have more shit here. I want them to have recon, and then... Fuck, what was the other thing I want you to have? Military police? That can't be right. No. You need you don't have transport helicopters? Oh. Yeah, no, we should definitely do that. That improves speed. Whoops. Okay, well, yeah, do that. Now I'm sure I need more transport helicopters, yeah. Not many. And then we're gonna get another kind of helicopter, and yeah, okay. Yeah, make them stupid fast so they can just fly around snatching up all the victory points and make this war that's supposed to be like the Vietnam War over in like 6 months. I think my best time was April, but May I can typically get it done by. Hoover's offer. Afternoon, Dick, J. Edgar Hoover said as he stepped into the Oval Office, quietly shutting the door behind him. Nixon furrowed his brow and replied, I told you not to call me that. You tell me lots of things, Mr. President. Well, I've had to postpone the one press conference where media wasn't going to be after my head, so this better be good. What Hoover had to say wasn't good, but it certainly was important. FBI's investigation to the origin of the blackmailers had seen little success. But there still remained the question of what to do with the blackmail itself. Hoover, ever cautious and considerate, asked the president whether it would be best to seal it away in some classified vault or destroy it as much as possible. Either way, it will hopefully stay buried forever. Although, it could see some value in the future. The existence of blackmail could, after all, provide a rather large boon to the president in the upcoming midterm elections. Now, the smart option here would be to burn it. But old Nixon didn't burn his records until it was way, way too late. Respectable campaign from Republicans and Democrats, and ours was calamitous. Okay. After months of politicking, spending, debates, stump speeches, and campaigns rising and falling, the big night is here. Americans from every walk of life are gathered around radios, television sets, or street corners to hear the news. Will their candidate win? Will their opponent go down in defeat? What will the big news story be tomorrow? What newcomer will upset the incumbent, or what damaged office holder will defy the odds and get another term? That and more will be announced tonight. Of course, with hundreds of races for mayors, governors, and representatives are important races in their own right, it's the Senate elections that people are most focused on. With political upheaval from Republican, Democrat, and National Progressive Party coalitions, the upper house of Congress has become the battleground for America's heart and ideals. Makeup of the Senate will soon be revealed to a waiting public. Oh yeah? Oh yeah, and I can click in here to check it out. So, the Republican Party lost 9 seats. Democrats got 1. The far right got 1. And the NPP Center got 7. Center is really the best we can hope for. Far left is incredibly hard to populate. So center, the Republican Party, well, you know what? We can just take a look at the new map. Yeah, orange is good. Pennsylvania and New York, NPP support is very high. We're very high in the Great Lakes region. That's great. So now I can probably focus on trying to steal California, because California is the next most valuable? No, the Deep South is, but them's a bunch of racists, and we keep them anyway, and it's very hard to turn these far right into centrists, so we're gonna yeet them sooner or later. So I want to power base here, and maybe here? West Coast has 58 votes. Yeah. East Coast has 112. Great Lakes has 98, and West Coast has 58. So between these three, you can win any presidential election, so long as you get some incidental votes mixed in. South Africa secured. Fantastic. What do we want to do now? Contact the Norwegian resistance. I'm gonna focus on the Indian subcontinent. Now, bringing out the tender... This improves India. This improves when Indonesia eventually revolts. Let's bring out the tinderbox. Make no mistake, the colonies Japan had won from Europe may fuel its economy to meteoric heights, but they are by no means eager in fulfilling the quotas chained to their backs. Discontentment is a pox. What the hell is that word? Concomitant? Somebody had a thesaurus. Concomitant. Concomitant? Commitant.
Concomitant.
Concomitant. A phenomenon that naturally accompanies or follows something. Good word, dude. That is a $5 word. What party is the one we don't like? All of them. We like NPP Center, kind of. The party we do like is NPP Left. Gus Hall and Libertarian Socialism. The national NPP Right we don't like. The NPP Far Right we don't like, but I can't even see that right now. Democrats and Republicans are they're okay, but they're more trouble than they're worth. As in all things. Japanese plans disdainfully call the Southern Resource Area haphazardly scattered freedom fighters violently return Tokyo's denegations to its beleaguered puppet regimes. Rising Sun expected pliant mines and oil wells out of Southeast Asia. Instead, they acquired only a tray full of kindling right underneath its boot hills. In accordance, Langley has drawn up plans for striking literal and figurative gunpowder throughout the region, setting it alight with the right and proper spark. Yeah. Memorandum. Situation in South Africa. The question of the vacant monarchy in South Africa symbolizes political tensions pulling the nation between the German Reich and the remainder of the free world. Upcoming referendum has inflamed these divisions, with the pro-German and Boer-led National Party, led by Albert Herzog, arguing to abolish the monarchy against the status quo United Party of Prime Minister de Villier's Graaf. You know something's wrong when you're siding with the fucking de Villiers family. With reports of German weaponry flooding Bloemfontein and political violence escalating, see Memoriam assassination of B.J. Vorster, CIA assets report widespread concern in Cape Town that referendum is cover for a declaration of Boer independence. This would rob South Africa of much of its strategic depth and provide a pretext for German intervention to support its new client state. Simultaneously, protests by the African National Congress against widespread discrimination continue to roil the nation. The movement continues to gather strength despite the incarceration of much of the ANC's executive leadership. Moderates are increasingly being sidelined by militant radicals. The center, it seems, cannot hold much longer. I hate that you can't side with the ANC here, because if I would, I could. Hey, I got helicopters I can't use, but it's good to have them. Right, we're doing that. It's 1962, almost 63. Let's just grab some artillery improvements, because we don't start out with those for some godforsaken reason. Helicopter, I don't want to attack helicopters. They're interesting, but maybe not good. Oh, what? Land doctrine, yeah. Army interoperability. Don't worry, we're already halfway to plopping in more helicopters in our helicopter divisions. Helicopters are weird. They're both attachments you can have to your army, and they are standalone aircraft. Eric Koh, severely injured in Kiev bombing. Cube. Second attempt on the life of a German leader this year. Martial law has been declared across the Reichskommissariat in Ukraine in an attempt on the life of Reichskommissar Erich Koch. Reportedly injured when a bomb hidden in his personal vehicle detonated as he left his home yesterday morning, 2 soldiers and his driver were killed, whilst Koh suffered severe injuries to his chest, right arm, and face. Following emergency surgery, the German administrator reportedly remains in critical condition. With undercover foreign press having extensively exposed the levels of violence and poverty within Ukraine since the German capture of the region from the Soviet Union during the Second World War, many internationally now fear the welfare of the Ukrainian people as Reich begins to hunt for those responsible. Okay, I think I'm making it to the end of 1962 and maybe putting in a cut here, because Jesus Christ, the reading. Been live for 3 hours. And we're not even through the first fucking year. Senate elections are in. There's a heady days of campaigning behind. Is this just generic? Posters are taken down. Yeah, okay. Polls are updated. Yes, I know who won. We can sell South Africa guns. My throat's fine. It's mostly my head. This mod gives me headaches. I don't know what, but something about this text hurts to look at for extended periods of time. It's not Hoi 4, it's not all games, but this gave me a migraine playtesting it yesterday too. Something about their UI just like physically pains me to look at, and I don't know what it is. It takes a while to kick in, but I'm starting to get there. The UIs, they're very proud of it. because it's more of a Cold War vibe than it is a World War II vibe, but like, bruh. Bruh. Up-res this. Up-res it significantly. Yeah. I mean, there's not visually anything going on. This is just story time with Alex. Alex reads weird alt history fiction and complains about it. So just like all of my series. U-2 almost shot down over England. Yesterday, German fighters based out of northern England nearly shot down a CIA U-2C piloted by Lieutenant Francis Gary Powers. Powers had entered English airspace when 4 Horton Ho 229 flying wings were detected on radar. However, 3 were forced to turn back due to fuel range, one of which crashed in the North Sea when it got overzealous and ran out of fuel for the return trip. Final aircraft managed to get within missile range, fired at Powers with what appears to have been an experimental missile designed specifically to shoot down the U-2 before peeling off to return to base. Powers evaded the missile and proceeded on course, completing his mission and returning to Eisenhower Air Force Base in Iceland. Due to the classified nature of the mission, we cannot let it be known publicly that our aircraft was engaged by German fighters. No diplomatic protest will be issued. No German scare will take the front page of the German morning news. Not this time. Good job, Gary! It's not even, I don't know, techno-punk? That's one way to put it. It just, I don't know, something about it hurts. And I like cyberpunk and bright things, and like, even this shade of cyan isn't bad, but there's just something about it that the longer I'm here, the worse it is. This icon in particular, the National Focus icon, just looks like trash when it's just solid teal and black. I don't know. Something about this isn't right, and I don't know what. President's Daily Brief. Mr. President, we believe the best way to curtail Japanese economic and military powers is to draw them into new and escalating conflicts. Get them bogged down in a new jungle war, and they'll feel the pain. Nixon nods carefully, considering his advisor's comment. All right, Bob, go on. One of McNamara's aides walks up with a pair of roll-up maps. Each one bears a detailed map of Southeast Asian country. 2 of the largest potential targets are Indonesia and the Philippines. Indonesia is a literal and political archipelago written by Japanese resource extraction, military regimes, and native collaborators. Meanwhile, the Philippines is a rebellious nation, as we know well, and the population is believed to be very resentful of their occupiers. They're a rebellious nation? Are you saying because they were conquered by the Japanese and still hold out hope for independence? Or are you saying because they revolted against American occupation back when we were trying to make them a colony? I don't know. I don't know how we know it well. But the population is believed to be resentful of their occupiers. Both countries have active rebel groups and what we could use as proxies against Tokyo. Nixon presses his hands together in a gesture of contemplation, staring at the black and red markings that dot the maps. Okay, Bob. What form of the proxy warfare would we be taking? McNamara's aides pull out more maps, more lists, more explanations, and over the course of the morning, a bloody strategy to drive new knives into the Empire of Japan takes form. They will have no peace with honor. Ha 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 ha, it's a Kaiserreich reference. Going for Indonesia, buddy. What atrocities the IJA and their lackey Sukarno have committed have done little to uproot Indonesia's resistant movements out of the shadows. The Indonesian people's well-earned reputation for guerrilla warfare, first against the Dutch, now against the Japanese, ensured a strong, discrete network of blind spots and contacts within the archipelago running without pause for decades. One could ask for no better lifeline than a myriad of rebel groups, all waiting for an opportune moment to swing their Dolores stroke. Through mutual friends' facilitations, the CIA will export earmarked materiel to the rebels' thankful hands. With arms and ammunition on hand, the rebels can sneak back into the unseen nooks and crannies of the Indonesian jungle, waiting days, weeks, months, however long it takes for their time to strike. And when that time does come, they'll be well stocked and ready. I can see the end of the year. It's coming, baby. It's only like a week and a half away. My voice, please. It is very sick. Oop, no, you're not done yet, Alex. 1962 NFL Championship game, Yankee Stadium. The stadium, most known for hosting the legendary New York Yankees baseball club, became the site of its ultimate football conclusion. The NFL Championship game at 30th edition pitted the Green Bay Packers against the New York Giants in a brutal 60-minute slugfest. Weather on the field registered at 16 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 8 degrees Celsius, was 35 to 40 miles per hour, 56 to 64 kilometers per hour winds. Very weird that you're translating. If this is supposed to be for an American, you would not have the Celsius or kilometers in here. I get it's for international players, but weird, dude. One of the coldest sport events ever played. My voice, my precious voice. You know, the Gollum voice isn't that hard to do. It's the Nixon one that feels weird. Really just speaks to my degradation physically. I'm closer to cave-bound Smeagol than I am to California-bound president. The Green Bay Packers, led by legendary Hall of Fame coach Vince Lombardi and University of Alabama quarterback Bart Starr, faced a stalwart New York defense line led by middle linebacker Sam Huff and defense end Andy Rubistelli. NBC broadcasted a widely anticipated game across the United States. Packers coming out strong, scoring their first 10 points unopposed in the first half of the game. Giants come back with a touchdown, but the team would never match its opponent's point total. Packers would win the championship by a total 16-7 after kicking two more field goals. The MVP of the game was Rain Nitschke? I don't know. Packers middle linebacker recorded 2 fumbles and a pass deflection for Green Bay defense. Another proud accomplishment from the state of Wisconsin. Why is this in your fucking mod? This is somebody who thinks that football history is meaningful history. I'll say it. Fuck your sport. The NFL is only important to Americans. The soccer results? That impacts a lot of nations. Who's going to win the NFL game? Is it going to be an American or an American? NFL tourney. I guess you can say NFL game, but it's kind of weird to say the National Football League game. It's not wrong, but it doesn't sound right. Are you fucking kidding me? On literally the last hour, the last day of the year. One more, Alex. You're not done yet. You're not done here. Please. Please. Where is this? Brunei? Give me a nation to look at. Oh my god, Alex, you know where Brunei is, don't you? I thought I did. I don't think I do. I thought... I do! It's tiny! It's you! It's you! I'm like, Brunei is in East Asia. Yeah, it's Muslim because of the traders that followed that route of the Silk Road from the Middle East. Yeah, Yeah, Brunei is like in here, but there's no Brunei on this fucking map. That's Brunei! Okay, I'm wrong. I thought Brunei was down here. I'm wrong. It does exist. Weird that it's independent. I mean, like, fine, but... I don't know. You still recreated Indonesia, but then you have Borneo be separate? And Brunei be separate? Just, it's a weird look, but whatever. Following the passing of Sultan Ibrahim, Suinan's Majis... Kesultanan Sinagara. Listen, my tongue, this language, they do not mix. Convened to select the next sultan. By a slim majority, Sultan... wait, this is Brunei? This is not Brunei. What? Is it? Am I high? No, it's absolutely not. This is Malaysia. Malaysia has both Brunei and Malaysia. Okay, I'm like, Brunei sure as fuck does not have this. This is Singapore. This is Malaysia. I'm not that bad at geography. I'm good at geography, damn you. By slim majority, Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin III of Brunei was elected next Sultan, as well as appointing him Prime Minister under a coalition of Japanese business interests and the landed gentry. New Sultan's support base does not represent the Firebrand Sultan's personal policy issues, as he has been touted by many as a stalwart reformer, one who will guide Soinan towards a new era under a benevolent hand of the monarchy. However, Sultan himself is barely noticeably reticent from comment. It's reported he shied away from answering reporters' questions upon taking oath as a new leader of Sunnat? Don't know how to pronounce that. Instead, driving straight to Kuala Lumpur's airport to catch a plane back to Brunei. Only time will tell should he prioritize national interests over regional ones. The Tiger of the East roars once more, except it doesn't because they don't have a focus street. Substantial Chinese minority. Interesting. Okay. One more hour. We're done. We're done. Hallelujah. For today. God, I thought we'd get so much further. We've made it a year. We've made it one fucking year. Load this, my dude. Holy shit, this is gonna be a long series. I will check this game out. I will check this mod out. I am determined to make it through this fucking mod. But this shit is exhausting. This is exhausting. I seriously might as well be reading fan fiction at this point. Yeah, no. An hour was me ranting about the mod before booting it, but a lot of that was me reading through flavor text and then saying, you got this wrong, you got this wrong, you got this wrong. This has still been 2 hours for 1 year at speed 5. That's obscene. That is obscene. It's all right. And I want to repeat how excited I am by how different it is, that it's this lore heavy and this slow and intentionally so, but like, holy shit. It's very different. Like, God, imagine Kaiserreich going 6 months without 5 civil wars. Granted, there are wars going on, but we're really on wheels. But it starts getting more dynamic in this, in 1963. In 1964, we start having some fun stuff happen here, and some fun stuff happen here, and a whole lot of presidents in really quick succession. It's a lot to look forward to, but that's going to be tomorrow. If you're watching on Twitch or YouTube, this is going to be it for today. So until tomorrow, I'm going to say toodle, take care. I will see you then. Bye-bye.